Hello YouTubers, it's redlipblonde, and we're going to do Words Through the Spirit of JFK. We all know he died. Some say conspiracy. Some say it's one shooter. I believe it's a conspiracy, but that's my own opinion. So through the Spirit, I asked questions, and I just got given words. And this is what I've gotten so far for JFK. December 17th, 2013. LBJ. Well, we know what LBJ stands for. Vice President. Hiroshima. Flights from JFK Kennedy's cockpit. I found online, link to Hiroshima was JFK Airport flight, which really doesn't have any to Hiroshima. But Hiroshima also came up under atomic bombs, library museum. In August 1963, difficult negotiations, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Soviet Union signed the Limited Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. The atomic bombs of Test Ban Treaty. The atomic bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki ended the Cold War too. In the beginning of the nuclear age, tensions between the East and West subsided. The Cold War. Scientists in all conducted tests and developed nuclear capabilities. But in 1959, took about 8 years, they found that radioactive deposits were found in wheat and milk in the nation, the United States, in the northern part of the United States. So, basically, the U.S. and Russia suspended the testing, but JFK opposed testing in 1956. Nuclear tests with the memorandum from 58 to 61. In the early 60s, JFK campaign was to end nuclear testing, not to resume nuclear tests or atomic testing. He began the test of nuclear testing, and he talked to Khrushchev in Vienna of June of 61. The U.S. political leaders, military advisors, heard Russia had opposed Kennedy's idea to bar the testing at the United Nations. They spoke of the treaty, and it was signed in Moscow in 1963. So, JFK, I guess, is giving word to the fact that there were issues concerning this treaty of opposing atomic testing, and other countries were not wanting to do so much later. Okay, so that was one of the words that I've gotten from Mr. Kennedy. The next word that Mr. Kennedy gave me through the Spirit. Remember, we're going to leak all this information together to see, what the truths are, about what he wants to express. He gave me the word Oxford. And basically, Oxford came up with a reference of a millionaire banker, businessman, which that led me to Britain in the 1930s. JFK Kennedy was a Democratic salesperson and 35th president, we know that, of the U.S. from 61 to 63. In 1940, JFK graduated Harvard. And in the Navy in 1943, his torpedo boat was hit and sunk, and he had saved some of the survivors in the Solomon Islands. In 1944 to 52, he was elected to the Senate. Oxford also came up with Robert Dallek. Oxford Press wrote a book about JFK, The Unfinished Life and Biography of JFK. Interesting fact. And also, Oxford came up under Strippers, JFK, and Stalin. It's a cartoon on the website. So, basically, Joseph Kennedy in 1888 to 1969. Reference was the millionaire banker, businessman, tycoon in the U.S., ambassador of Britain in the 30s. So, the next word he gave me was Giles. G-E-I-L-E-S is what I came up with. And in reference to his words to the Spirit, came up with a person named Giles is on YouTube who does videos about JFK and the President, which may be something of interest of someone to watch. And he does other presidents of Bush, Clinton, and Reagan as well. And the name brought up a clip of JFK's photos. Of Connolly's and his wife on the day he was shot. Alright, the next word he gave me was Cromwell, April 25th, 1599 to 1658. An English military and political leader, Cromwell, was the word. His first name was Oliver. He was a political leader. His connection was with duels, and this is where it gets interesting. Mr. Kennedy gave me these names through the Spirit, and I didn't know what connection they were to him. But the connection duels is quite interesting because not just alone is it connected to JFK, but our government officials, and has a lot to do with the Jewish Nazi camps, and which also links to Marilyn Monroe, which I'm finding this really uncanny because I just did videos of Marilyn Monroe through the Spirit in her words. And James Forrester was the first Secretary of Defense in the U.S., and her name and his name and JFK's name over the UFO sightings crash, which they all mysteriously came up dead. James Forrester died unexpectedly by a tragic unknown cause, and we can kind of link that to the secret societies. I'm sure it had something to do with it, as well as JFK and Marilyn Monroe both died of unnatural death. So we'll get into duels. Of course, he was the head of a lawyer banker, which bankers seem to be involved for a long time in our own U.S. government. 1893 to 1969 is his birth date. He served as U.S. 1953 to 61. He was listed under the Warren Commission. And isn't that interesting to know that a man who later in life worked for Kennedy, got fired from Kennedy, and then the LBJ, which was mentioned earlier in the words given, had hired him to work on the Warren Commission, which makes no sense to me. And I'm going to go ahead and give you more information about Mr. Duel and how not just he having links to J.F. Kennedy, he may have links to a lot of, maybe a key word of why he was killed. And he gave me this name for a reason, and I believe that Mr. John Foster Duell had a lot to do with JFK's death, along with LBJ. So here's his history. Okay, John Foster Duell served as U.S. Secretary of State under Republican President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, Eisenhower is mentioned in the Kennedy words to the Spirit. I find that these are the correct ones that are in the government in the U.S. that have caused a lot of criminal scenes, behind the scenes, you can say that. Okay, well, Eisenhower from 53 to 59, he was a significant figure in the early Cold War era, advocating an aggressive stance against communism throughout the world. He negotiated numerous treaties and alliances to bring that about. Now, isn't it funny how Mr. Kennedy mentioned just prior to this that he was anti-treaty on the testing of atomic bombs and then nuclear bombs, and he had difficulties presenting that to stop it with other countries as well as our own. And I think this was a big issue concerning Kennedy when he was in office. There were some people under the scenes that did not agree with Kennedy's ideas, and Dulles, who was mentioned, was one of them, according to Mr. Kennedy, who gave me these words. I'm connecting the dots, and this is what I'm finding. So, Mr. Dulles had advocated support from the French in their war against the Vietnamese of Indonesia, but rejected the Geneva Accords that France and the Communists agreed to, and instead supported South Vietnam after the Geneva Conference in '54, that's when Kennedy came into play in 1954. So these are all connecting. Him and Dulles go way back, and Dulles is a key figure. His early life was in Washington, D.C. He was one of 5 children, and eldest son of a Presbyterian minister, Allen Macy Dulles. A Presbyterian minister. We got religion involved in here, folks. With his wife, Edith Foster. His parental grandfather, John Welsh Dulles, had been a Presbyterian missionary in India. And India is also mentioned in the JFK words given to me through the Spirit. Just to let you know. He attended public schools in Watertown, New York. After graduating from Princeton University, he completed an American Whig of Philosophy Society debate team. And graduating, Dulles was a partner in the prestigious New York law firm Sullivan and Cromwell. So you can see here that Cromwell, the word, had led me to Mr. Dulles, because he worked for a law firm, Sullivan and Cromwell. And he specialized in international finance. How convenient. Dulles played a major role in designing the Dawes Plan and reduced German payments and temporarily resolved the repartition issues by having American firms loan money to German states and private companies. German states and private companies this guy was loaned money to. He had quite some power. The money was invested and the profits sent as reparations to Britain and France, which used it to repay their own war loans from the U.S. In the 1920s, Dulles was involved in settling up $1 billion worth of those loans, but there were no new ones after the Wall Street crash in 1929 and after 31. Germany stopped making payments. Okay, so in 1934, Germany literally stopped payments on private debts and the sort that Dulles was handling. In 1935, with the Nazis in power, the junior partners forced Dulles to cut all business ties with Germany. Dulles at the time was prominent in the religious peace movement and an isolationist, but the junior partners were led by his brother, Allen, so he reluctantly went along. 1940s, Dulles was a close associate of Thomas E. Dewey, who became the presidential candidate of the Republican Party in the 1944 elections to 48. During the elections, Dulles served as Dewey's chief foreign policy advisor, and not only with the word Cromwell, but foreign policy also came out from JFK through the Spirit. So that's quite interesting. We'll continue on. In 1945, Dulles participated in the San Francisco Conference and worked as an advisor of Arthur H. Vandenberg. and helped draft the Permeable to the United Nations Charter. He subsequently attended the United Nations General Assembly as the United States delegate in 46, 47, and 1950. So although Dulles has a lasting reputation as a hawk and nuclear weapons proponent, he was strongly opposed to the U.S. atomic attacks on Japan. I tend to disagree with that. In the immediate aftermath of the bombings, he drafted a public statement that called for international control of nuclear energy under the United Nations. He worked very closely with the United Nations, which was another word Kennedy gave me, which we know there's quite a bit of corruption there. All right, we're going to go on. Dulles never lost his anxiety about the destructive power of nuclear weapons. However, his views of international control and employing the threat of atomic attack changed in the face of the Berlin blockade, the Soviet detonation of an A-bomb, and the advent of the Korean War, which convinced him that the communist bloc was pursuing expansionist policies. Dulles was appointed by Dewey at the United States Senate as a Republican from New York on July 7, 1949, to fill the vacancy caused by the resignation of Democrat Robert F. Wagner. Dulles served. Now, why was Wagner removed? Well, he served from July 7, 1945 to November 8, 1949 with the successor, Herbert Lechman, who was elected after beating Dulles to the special election to fill the Senate vacancy. All right, I'm going to continue on with another video. On the key word here was Cromwell, which led me to John Foster Dulles, which JFK gave me his name in the spirit, who in fact is linked to smuggling in German scientists after the Nazi War to work alongside them in our own U.S. And we supported the arms of the Nazi War. Of course, that's not to be mentioned. The U.S. has quite a bit of corruption. Kennedy is exposing that through his words and through his spirit. So follow up with video 2 on JFK, the truth, through his own words, through the spirit. See you then.